These men are Afghan Muslims who have taken up arms against the communist regime in Afghanistan. They are returning from Pakistan to the eastern province of Kunar. They are called Mujahideen, and they are fighting jihad. Maulay Saab Hussain is now leading all the Mujahideen fighting in Kunar province.
As Muslims, we have a teaching and understanding about jihad. Fight them so there will be no division, and the whole religion will be only Allah's. In Islam, we understand that jihad is obligatory on us for two reasons. Firstly, when the actions of those in power come between a people and the truth, and build walls between them, deceiving them and making them live in fear. We fight jihad to destroy that power, and then the religion will be for Allah alone. And the second purpose of jihad is to free people from slavery and let them live in freedom. To live under one law that doesn't come from the minds of men, but comes from Allah, the Creator, the King who governs the heavens and the earth.
The Afghans, particularly the largest ethnic group, the Pathans, are fiercely independent. When the Halq Party, a minority communist group, led by Nur Muhammad Taraki, overthrew the existing government in 1978, the people regarded their policies as oppressive and a threat to their way of life. The Halq Party government is supported by the Russians, who had for a long time poured substantial aid into Afghanistan. Afghanistan is strategically important to Russia in relation to the Middle East and the warm waters of the Indian Ocean. The people were not opposed to Russian interest in Afghanistan until the Russians actively backed the new regime with extensive economic and military aid.
They are using Russian guns and tanks and are bombing indiscriminately, killing our women and children. The Russians are bombing, dropping different kinds of bombs, and this bombing is destroying the houses where the people live. They have Russian soldiers and advisors, and their attack was instigated by the Russians. Our people won't fight against us.
These Afghans have walked 1,500 miles to buy guns at Dura, a town in the northwest tribal area of Pakistan, where there is a flourishing arms trade. Despite the simple machinery, they produce working copies of sophisticated military weapons in Dura. The Pathans of the northwest frontier consider it a basic right of man to carry arms, and the gun is one of their most treasured possessions. For the Afghans, it is now an expensive necessity, with bullets costing at least $1 each. In a recent clampdown, the Pakistan authorities have attempted to stop the movement of arms through their territory, making things more difficult for the Mujahideen.
If Pakistan helped us in the coming and going of our weapons, things would be much easier. We are not being helped with arms. If we had been, we would never have lost even one battle. We are buying our guns and ammunition from Dura with our own money, and no one has helped us with this. Otherwise, we could finish the war in 20 days.
The only road in this part of the northwest frontier runs through the Khyber Pass. This is the territory of the Pathan people. When the British established the border here, they drew an arbitrary line along the highest mountains and divided the Pathans between Pakistan and Afghanistan. With Pathans living on both sides of the border, control of their movements is nearly impossible. On the Pakistan side, the Pathans coexist peacefully with the government because they are allowed a separate legal system and a high degree of autonomy in their tribal areas. The Pathans are adept at smuggling goods back and forth across the border. And in this way, the Mujahideen carry their arms and supplies into Afghanistan. This group are returning to the Shigal Valley in Kunar province to join the fighting there. 85% of Afghanistan's population are farmers. They almost immediately distrusted the Halk Party's literacy programs and the land reforms which aimed to redistribute the land, encouraging individual and cooperative ownership. The Halk Party had no real representation in the countryside. The people rejected the government agents and their alien ideas. Loyal to their traditional feudal system and their tribal leaders, the people began to question the authority of the new regime that was trying to intervene in their lives. They believed that the government was robbing them and attempting to win favor by giving land and wealth to its supporters. Within a month, the situation had developed into one of a centralized state at odds with the people it was claiming to represent. The regime used the army to maintain its security and authority, and its methods soon became heavy-handed. Resistance began here, in the Shigal Valley in Kunar province, when the government tried to implement its policies by force. 20 days after the coup which brought Taraki's regime to power, troops came to the house of a local leader, Kashmir Khan. They attempted to arrest him and shot 4 unarmed men. Kashmir Khan managed to escape and is now leading the fighting in the Shigal Valley. The troops returned the next day and burnt down Kashmir Khan's house and several others in the village. They moved on up the valley to Nariat, a neighboring village, and burnt it to the ground. 5,000 people had lived here. Like many others all over Afghanistan, Kashmir Khan and the people from Nariat fled through the mountains to settle their families as refugees in Pakistan. Pakistan is not supporting the current fighting, but is trying to provide food and shelter for the Afghan refugees. There are now an estimated 200,000 of them in Pakistan alone.
They killed everyone. See how old I am? I have never left my country before. I have never been here before. We left because of the rule of the Democratic Khalq Party and oppression, and because we do not accept their laws. Our houses were bombarded, our villages burned. One Friday at 3 o'clock, government troops came to the village and burned, for no other reason than that we were Muslims. They collected all our leaders and teachers, and said there is only one law, which is the communist law. They said, what is prayer and what is Quran? Quran is only stories that came from Arabia. The sole reason for our fighting against the government is Islam, and we will keep on fighting until the whole country is once again under Muslim rule. If not, we will fight to the end. The people in the province of Kunar are fighting in the way of Islam and fulfilling the principles of Islam. The Mujahideen keep enough men at the front to keep the government troops surrounded all the time, and the people are looking after their daily affairs. But when there is an attack, all the people of the province join in the fighting, and there are more than 100,000 people in Kunar.
Kashmir Khan leads the fighting in the Shigal Valley for the Hizbi Islami and also deals with the daily affairs of the people. Like many of the provinces in Afghanistan, Kunar is now almost completely under the control of the Mujahideen. In all the areas they control, the Mujahideen have set up administrative offices where they coordinate their activities.
120 soldiers killed, 80 wounded and 40 captured. We took 120 Kalashnikov, 1 mortar, 1 wireless and binoculars.
The offices in Kunar are run by the Hizbi Islami, the Islamic Party, whose leader, engineer Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, is in Pakistan.
Everyone in Afghanistan is behind the Mujahideen and standing by them. You know that the Muslim struggle in Afghanistan began as a spontaneous uprising by the people, because the government has covered over their personal hopes and beliefs. Those people were only armed with old weapons, and they took action under the banner of the Mujahideen.
The biggest breakthrough for the Mujahideen came when the Afghan soldiers, always reluctant to kill their own people, began surrendering. They brought with them their Russian-made arms and equipment and began fighting alongside the Mujahideen. In Asmar, a garrison town in Kunar occupied by government troops, these soldiers mutinied, killing their Halq party officers and the provincial governors, and joined the Mujahideen.
And these small groups in Asmar have already declared that they are with the Mujahideen, and they number about 2,000 men. At different times, when the opportunity arises, more join us in their 50s and 100s.
It is estimated that despite recent pay increases, desertions have halved the army from its original 80,000, clearly indicating the conscripts' disenchantment with the regime they helped to bring into power. Soldiers who were captured and known to be Halq party members are being held prisoner. The Mujahideen say they will try them when they form a government. But many of them become supporters of the Mujahideen and are then released. The fundamental difference between the Muslims and the Halq party lies in the atheism of the regime. Although with the recent change of leadership, the regime claims to respect Islam, the Muslims consider it godless, and that anyone involved in it is an unbeliever. Its policies are still unacceptable to the Mujahideen, who see their struggle as part of the Islamic resurgence and awakening that is sweeping the Muslim world.
In Afghanistan, the faithful Mujahideen are fighting to establish a pure Islamic government and spread the message. This is their aim. They are fighting jihad for this kind of government, and they are sacrificing themselves, shedding their blood, and they are selflessly offering their lives taking up arms in order to establish a foundation for the Sharia of Islam and the fundamental Islamic way. In Afghanistan, they will be able to live in an Islamic atmosphere, which will be economically, socially, personally, and politically sound. Islam is a complete system that can organize every aspect of life. We believe that Islam is the only complete way of life for the people.
In the mosques throughout the countryside, teachers call people to join the fighting, telling them why jihad is obligatory for them. In Shigal, the Mujahideen are gathering in preparation for the push on Sharasarai, the provincial capital, the only part of Kunar still held by the government. In all the provinces, Mujahideen and rebel soldiers are fighting to take control before making the final assault on the capital, Kabul.
على كذا قلت لك كنت تسوي صادر غوسنا كده كده زي كده غوس شكارو في وسكارو باسي أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة.
You see that we have been fighting for 7 months. You know that we will go to the jihad, but it is difficult for us to fight with sticks and be calm about it. But if we have guns, we will feel more confident and could easily attack. Even if you don't give us guns, we will go.
In Kunar, the fighting is organized by the Hizbi Islami led by engineer Hekmatyar. But in the country as a whole, there are 6 other parties, each claiming to control different areas. The differences among the parties are unresolved, and all attempts at forming an alliance have failed. Nevertheless, their common aim is to take Kabul and overthrow the Halk government.
They have now reached the surrounding areas of Kabul. Some of the areas are completely free from government control. You know that Afghanistan is a mountainous country. 85% of it is covered by mountains, and most of the mountains areas are liberated. Now the government only controls the main roads and large cities, and that only during the day. During the night, the Mujahideen take control.
During the day, women and children hide in shelters in the mountains, as the areas controlled by the Mujahideen are being bombed daily by government planes.
In the flat areas of Chigal and the areas around the provincial capital, they have used every kind of bomb with the exception of the atom bomb. In this way, they are attempting to bring the people under control. The main damage is to property, and they have destroyed houses.
دا چې روسي مشرانو یا روسي مستخدمین چې په دې
No one from amongst the 2,000 soldiers would deny who was advising and leading them. They say it is the Russian advisors and soldiers.
Led by Kashmir Khan, the Mujahideen are marching to reinforce the fighting front at Sharasarai. The Russians have recently moved combat troops into Afghanistan to strengthen the depleted army at strategic bases and airfields around Kabul. They are committed by treaty to help the Afghan regime against any internal or external threat. The Russians must be aware that in the face of this Islamic tide, their involvement in Afghanistan could easily backfire. There are 50 million Muslims in Russia who look upon the Afghans as their brothers. The Russians' actions in Afghanistan could create problems for them in their own Muslim areas across the border. These soldiers from the brigade that mutinied in Asmar are also going to the front, bringing supplies and equipment in their trucks. The government garrison at Sharasarai, the provincial capital, is now surrounded and cut off. Supplies for the troops have to be flown in by armor-plated helicopters, as the Mujahideen have anti-aircraft guns in the mountains. The Mujahideen have the advantage of being able to constantly move their men, while the government troops, fixed in defensive positions, are under daily artillery and mortar fire. The actual attacks are only made at night, under cover of darkness. While their artillery provide covering fire, groups of Mujahideen move down the mountains to attack the government positions. Their aim is to slowly gain ground and eat away at the morale of the besieged troops until they are finally forced to surrender. Food is in short supply. Bread and thin soup has become the staple diet, occasionally supplemented by meat. Lack of supplies will bring great difficulties in the winter, when it is very cold in the mountains. The Mujahideen are determined to take Sharasarai before the snows and bring the whole province under their control. The other provinces are in the same situation, needing to strengthen their positions and take control before the harsh winter months.
We have Zigawiak and the Dashka, which we have seized from government troops. But these are not very effective against the aeroplanes. But our main defenses are that we believe in Allah and our destiny. And secondly, our strategic and geographical position.
This belief has left the Mujahideen undaunted by the news of the movement into Afghanistan of extra Russian brigades. It also led to their rejection of the amnesty offered by Hafizullah Amin, who took over the leadership of the government in August 1979.
We are fighting against those who are interfering in our country and would fight anyone who interfered, whether they were from the east or the west. We would continue to struggle against them in the same way we are fighting against the government. Anyone who wants to enslave us or attack our liberty, anyone who interferes in our country, anyone who doesn't accept our autonomy, we are against them, and we would rather die than accept those things. But if anyone extends his hand in friendship, we will accept their hand of friendship with happiness.
It is estimated that so far 80,000 people have been killed since the Halq Party came into power in 1978. 100,000 are in prison, and over 250,000 have fled to take refuge in Pakistan and Iran. The Muslims are continuing their push towards Kabul from all sides and beginning to take action in the city itself. Whether the Russians escalate their military support of the Halq regime or not, the Mujahideen state that they are committed to fight to the end.